Again, we getting started. Okay, so to recap, what we did earlier was to get to the documents directory. We were able to write a file. We were able to write the file to the documents directory. To recap again, what we did, we added an item. We appended the item to the events array, and we wrote that events array to the documents directory. That one action we did, it created the schedules.plist file. It did not exist before. We added an array of events as data. We serialized it to data. It created the schedule.plist file. Okay? That's what we did. But we cannot now get information outside of the documents directory back into our application. We are not able to do that yet. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So if we go back to our schedule list controller, let's go to our schedule list controller here and see how it gets data. We have an events array in our schedule list controller. We have an events array here. In our viewDid load, we are saying event get me test data. So back in Unit 2, when we created this application, the way we got information into our table view was to use this get test data function, right? We created some default events. It returned us some default events. But for now, we will not use this anymore. So let's go back to our viewDid load. In our viewDid load, let's comment this out. In our viewDid load, let's comment out that line. In the viewDid load, let's comment the line out and run the app again. Where is that error? Do I have an error here somewhere? Missing return. Oh, this guy. If you have an error, simply just return an empty array for now. If you have an error in your load events, just return an empty array. If you have an error in your load events, return an empty array. Okay, so let's run the app again. Make sure you comment out the events test data here. Okay, so at this point, we do not have any data. We have no data. Our table view is empty. We know we have, in documents directory, we know we have an array of events, right? We confirm that. We confirm that because we went to Finder and we have a schedules.plist. We double-clicked on the schedules.plist and we saw that we do have data. We created an event. Can we all confirm that we do have an event in our schedule list? All right, great. And it's an array. The root level here is an array of items. The index, it starts from 0. Perfect. So now we need to retrieve that array. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll go back to our persistence helper class. Let's go back to our persistence helper class and load events. So how are we going to load events? What are the steps? In my load events function, anything you're doing with documents, what do I need? What do I need here?
You need something that will follow the event that's saved and change it back to.
So I need somewhere to serialize stuff, right? From data to, that's one thing. But how do I even get to that file? What do I need there?
The directory.
I need a directory, so I need that URL. Everybody with Tanya? So Tanya says we need a handle to the URL that we want to read from. So very similar to our save function, we need to have a URL. So we'll go ahead and put that in. So we need access to the file name URL that we are reading from. So we start off with URL here. How do I get to the URL again with the function we wrote? FileManager. Very good. Path to documents directory, and I'm passing in the file name here. Where does file name come from? At the top of our class, we have a file name constant. We have a file name constant, and we give it schedules.plist. So that's the file name there. Great, so we have a file name. Awesome. Get in the habit of, before you're trying to read from something, see if it exists. Okay? Get in the habit of doing that. Right? So we'll see if it exists first. So check if file exists. And the code for that is if FileManager .default.file exists. So the file manager, again, anything you're doing with the file system, you're accessing it via the file manager. So FileManager.default is a singleton. On that singleton, we have a function called fileExist. It returns a Boolean value. Does that file exist at that URL? Okay? Does the file we're looking for, does it exist at that URL? And it returns a Boolean value. So here, does the file exist at URL? Let me back up here 1 second. So file exists. What type does it take? What data type? A string, right? So we need a string here. Right now we have a URL, so we have to convert this URL to a string. Let's see how to do that. So here we have a URL. We want to convert it to a string. So to convert URL to string, we use .path on the URL. So on that URL, I will say .path here. .path will return me a string. Okay? Yes, sir?
Why don't we do that description on the URL?
You could do that description on the URL, but actually it might not exactly work there. So the .path is that API that will give you an exact string. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so perfect. We have our URL. This function is happy. If it doesn't exist, we could simply put an else statement here, and for now, we'll put a print statement. We'll say file does not exist. And what file does not exist? We'll string interpolate and we'll say file name does not exist. Okay, let's continue on. So if we get into that if statement, we know the file exists. Great. We know that the file exists. So let's go ahead and read from it. We'll use a do catch here. And what are we expecting back? We're expecting back an array of events and we'll use our file manager here. File manager .default.contents. So on the file manager, again, on that singleton, we have a function called contents@path. So give me the contents at some path. And what do I get back? What type of data do I get back? I get data back. Is it just data? But hey, it's an optional data, right? It could be nil. So here we have contents at and URL.path, and it could exist or not. And this is data, not events. So if let data, and here I'll still put in an else statement here. So if we have data, great, we got data. If not, I'll print out data not found, or data, no data. I think I jumped the gun with my do catch. Sorry about that. That's okay. Let's take out the do catch for now. Sorry. and format your code. We format our code, Command A, Control I. And we have enough brackets here. I have one bracket for this guy. I have my else statement. I have my if statement here. Okay. Let's format the code so we could all read this clearly and what's happening here. Okay, first thing we did on line 58, we said check to see if the file exists. If the file exists, we go inside the if block, we use the file manager, and we say, file manager, please read the contents of this file at this path. The file manager returns an optional data object. Maybe there is data, maybe the data is nil, maybe there's nothing. In that case, we do an else statement, no data. If there is data, this is where we have our do catch. If there is data, now we could do our events. What am I using to convert this data to my events array? What class am I using? I'm using property list. I'm using property list. Decoder, right? Everybody? Everybody? Adan? Chelsea? Okay. So here I'm using a try. I'm using property list decoder. Decode an array of events. Again, this is similar to our networking code. Right? This is very similar to getting some API, getting the data from online, correct? The only difference is this class is not a JSON decoder, it's property list decoder. Okay? I'll pause here for questions if we have any questions before we continue. So first step, if I want to read to something, or if I want to read from something, I need to get that URL of that thing I want to read from. That's line 54. Where is that URL? We get the URL with the file name. 58, we say we want to check to see if the file exists, if there's something there. If there's nothing there, why read it? There's nothing there. If there is a file, I come into line 59. I read the contents. My file manager has a function called contents at the path that I provide. I provided a URL.path. It expects a string. It expects a string. So I have my URL.path, which is a string in that case. It gets the contents. The contents, maybe there is, maybe there's no contents there. If there is contents, I get it back in the data format. And we'll continue with the data format here. I'm using my property listing decoder. I'm decoding the array. And that array better be an array of, what does it have to conform to? It has to conform to decodable, right? In that case, we have codable already. So whatever model you have needs to conform to either codable or decodable. Very similar to our JSON parsing. And here we have the data. We got the data back from the file manager. And now we have events here. If we have an error, we'll throw the error. So here we need to stop and say, okay, we'll add a next case on our enum to throw, because this function is also going to throw. Everybody? This function will also throw. So we could throw a couple of things. We could throw file does not exist. We could throw no data. We could throw a decoding error here. Great. We have things to throw. So those are the three things we're throwing. Somebody please remind me what we're throwing. We're throwing file doesn't exist, no data, and decoding error. Everybody? Cool? All right, let's do it. So let's go up to our persistence.
How do we know that?
Those are where we have print statements. Anywhere you have a print statement, that means you want to convey something went wrong, correct?
Okay, so the first one is...
You'll remind me as I type up. So somebody stay down here, or somebody remind me, either or.
Okay.
But we are updating our enum. So let's update our enum. What's the first case? File does not exist. Okay, so file. What's the next one? And what's the next one? Perfect.
So how come we don't need it? Okay, so there's not gonna be an error when file is not working.
We could have a string here. We could give them back the string. Actually, let's give them back the string to show them the file name that they passed to us. Good observation. So anything you want to capture, you use an associated value on it. Class, yes? No data is not exactly anything that we have in them. There's no data, there's no data. But yes, anything you want to capture, you could use an associated value for it. The powers of enums, right? Perfect, let's continue on. Let's update those print statements, because print statements here do not belong. If you're saying something here with a print statement, you really want to tell it to the view controller. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? Yes, sir. Oh, I thought you had a question. No, you're right here. Cameron, I thought you had a question. I saw your hand. Okay, so no data. Let's go ahead and throw. Before we throw, what do we need to do to this function?
Market throw.
Market throws. Great. Build. I put this the wrong place. It should go right here. Okay, so we have throws, and we are throwing this print statement here. And data, persistence error, and it is no data. And we are saying throw. Great. Next one we have here, we have throw-in, data, persistence error, dot decoding error, error. And lastly, we have file does not exist. So we need this file name here. We'll grab that. Actually, let's just pass the whole string. Why not? Throw data persistence error dot file does not exist, and just give them the file name. Perfecto. So far, so good. And here we'll simply return events. Great. All right. Let's walk through this before we continue.
And this is all so that we can retrieve, right?
Yeah. You misuse the defaults?
No.
Almost. Okay. So we have a function. We have a static function. It's called load events. Doesn't take in any arguments. It returns an array of events. And keep in mind, when we do refactor this, it will return an array of what? Of generic type T, right? It will return an array of type T. Why? T. It will return some array of type T, right? But for now, for our lab as well, we'll create the thing from scratch. So we get in the habit of writing this and knowing what it does. But once we're comfortable with it, sometime next week, we'll refactor everything to be generic. Great. So I have my function. I need to get a URL of what I want to read from. I get it on 57. I go down to 61. I say, does the file exist at this URL? FileManager says yes. It goes down to line 62. It says FileManager, singleton, function, get me the contents at this file. It returns, if it has data, it returns data. If it doesn't have data, it's nil. I just say no data. If I do have data, I use a do catch because my property list decoder throws an error. So I wrap it with a do catch, very similar to our JSON decoder. I go ahead in my do statement. I say try to convert this array of events from this data object. So try to create an array of events from this data object. I get back an array of events. Great. If anything else went wrong, it throws an error, decoding error. Next, at the end of all that, if all went well, I return an array of events, in that case to my view controller, and then I'm able to load my table view with the events that I have. Any questions? Okay, so let's go on to our schedule list controller, and let's get our events. So similar to what we had earlier, we'll simply say events here. I will use my persistent helper dot load events, which throws an error here. And here, again, I could print for now or do some alert. So here I'll simply say error loading events, and I will put error here. And maybe we want to have this in a function. So let's grab this and make a function. We'll call the function private function load events, and we'll grab that in here. So cut this and paste it in our function, and let's make sure to call our function. I'm sorry? We on the main view controller. Yeah, definitely. So here we just have the same sorted algorithm, sort. What do we want to sort? Let's just sort here. We still want to sort by date if we want to, here. Anybody tested it yet? At minimum, you should have one event if you run the code now. Confirmation? You got it? Awesome. So Shania got back her event. Very, very good. And let's run ours and see what's going on. Great, I got back my food. Look at that. Perfect. How are we doing, everybody? How are we doing? David, were you able to get back your event? Very good. So let's create a next event and see if it persists. So I'll go to my add event. I will say work on lab. I'm creating an event because I really like to work on my labs on the weekend. I get up at 5 before everybody's up. Right? Right, Luba? Right? So work on lab, that could be a lab as well. I click return here, I click create event.
It's 5 p.m., sir.
5 p.m.? Oh. That's a hangover. So that should have been 5 a.m. there. Sorry, we don't have update yet, but you could work on update. But I work on lab, right? I stop my application. I run my app again. It better have work on lab again, or else this app is getting 1 star. Okay, so I got work on lab. Everybody saw that, right? Yes? Awesome. So we're able to write, we're able to read. Last step we'll do, if I'm done working on my lab, I want to delete my lab because I finished that event. But right now, if we delete and we run the app again, it still persists. Everybody? So the last step is when I delete, I want to come back and it should be gone. So let's implement that last method and we'll wrap lecture. Okay, so how are we doing? Do we have a question? Update, we don't have the UI for that right now. That could be a task you could do after the fact. Once you have the 3 functions working, you could add update. Right now, we have no detail view, right? So ideally, with Julia's question, update. If I want to update this application, I would probably go to a detail. Are we ready? Are we ready? There's no what? Mapper? Yeah. All right, class, are we ready? Yes. Okay. Let's continue on. Okay, so we want to delete, and when we come back to the app, that event should be gone. So let's work on that particular function. Let's work on that function. If we go back to persistence helper here, we started working on the delete function. Again, sorry, let me go back to Luba's question. Let's help after the fact. Aaron, let's help after the fact. We're very close to the end of this lecture. Let's come back after the fact. We'll go around and help people. Okay. If I click on the food right now, Luba, I do not have a UI to show the event. But if I had a UI to show a detail, I would edit my food. For example, I would have a text field. And if I click on it, I change food to like food meeting or whatever it is. I would have a save button, and that would update the event at that index. And then I would resave my events. Cool? Very good. So that would be like what the update looks like. But right now, we don't have the UI, and I don't want to go create a new UI right now, because as long as we understand saving, retrieving, deleting, we could have update. Everybody? All right, cool. So let's have a delete. We started delete. Delete, we said we delete some event at some index. So the view controller provides the index. First, we first remove the item from the array, from the events array. And if we remove an item from the events array, we need to go ahead and save our events array to the documents directory. Right? So we basically have one line of code to write here. We'll do a bit of refactoring to get one line of code here that simply says save. So we'll take a step back. We'll refactor our save item, because right now save item does saving as well. So we'll refactor our save item. We'll remove some code from the save item that actually does the saving. So we could basically call save here at any point in that application. So let's refactor our save item. Go back to save item here. Okay, so we'll refactor this a little bit. We'll have a function called, it's going to be a private function. Private function save. We have a private function called save. And we'll go ahead and we'll grab most of the code here. into our save function. We need a URL as well. Awesome. Wait. We're refactoring, guys. We gotta refactor the code here because we're not gonna duplicate the saving functionality. I'm sorry? I removed URL down as well. We're refactoring our code here. Because right now our delete needs a save. So the last thing we want to do is copy code and put in the save in the delete button. The same code, that same code we need here, we need in the delete function.
Why do we save?
I'm sorry?
Why delete needs to save?
Because if you don't save the array of elements, they'll always
The rest.
Yes, exactly. So Julia's question was, why do we also need to save our array? Anything you do into that array, you need to save it. One second, we're not done yet. So take most of the code. As I said, the only thing you're leaving in there is events.append. Okay? And everything else is going in our save function. We are refactoring our code. All right. So we have our URL, which we had before. And we are throwing here. So we need to mark this as a throws function. That's about it. Why are we running here? We're developers. You guys got to be comfortable to refactor code. Okay, so this is good. We have one save function. And the save function could work in the update function. If I update something, I just call save. If I delete something, I just call save. And if I delete something, I call save. Everybody with me? Okay? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wait, I'm still getting an error.
Make sure that you mark your save as a throws function.
I did, and I had it as a static, and then it made me take it off.
Your function is still static.
It said arbitrary private can only be used in a non-local scope. Replace static with outside of, is inside of the same save function, or is it a separate function? Oh, okay, gotcha. So I just need to hold on, got it. I just need an explanation.
Okay, cool. Great. So here we have, what are we doing? We're saving here. So try to save the event. You got it? Yes, sir. I will slack out this function.
Okay, so just so that we're on the same page, we have a save.
We have a save and we have a save item or save event.
We have a save, and so right now I have two saves. So I should
You have one that's private
right.
and you have one that's public to any view controller.
All right. So the only one that I would ever be able to access is going to be the other save that's not private.
Exactly. Anybody else have questions about this?
Why does
What?
the public function doesn't need all the other stuff?
Public function. Which, because we realized if we went to, what's going to happen here, because I've seen that many times, right? I see our code. Our code, if you want to save again, you would end up doing this. You would copy everything here, and you would go down to the delete button, and you would paste it there. Correct? We don't do that. If we see we duplicating code, we stop, we refactor, we put it in a function, and we call that function as we need it.
Because we're going to call the function inside of the save.
Exactly. Cameron, yes.
I think you just introduced us to
Where am I?
Wait, can we name it save?
Oh, this guy? Oh, sorry. I called the wrong thing. Very good. I love it. What's the question, Tiffany?
That item, we're only, so just so I know, so instead of leaving all that other data inside of the do catch, we're not doing the do catch because now we put that into the private function save item quote unquote, if we were to make it save item, right? Instead of
Exactly.
right, so then we take out that do catch and we would just put underneath the event, we'll just say, well, try, and then that function, because that's what that function does.
In the save function, the public save function,
Uh-huh.
we need to still write our do catch here.
Oh,
And we still need to save our thing. We just call it save. Like that.
okay, so we still need to do that.
And we still throw in our data persistence error.
We still do it too. And inside the do, we try. So we're not doing save event. We can take that out.
Yes.
Okay.
This public calls the private. The public calls the private.
Okay.
Okay? Are we on board? Is everybody on board so far? You catch yourself duplicating code, you stop, you write a function. Our function is a private function. Everything needs to save, so we have one save function. Delete needs to save item needs to save, or save event needs to save. If you have an update, update also needs to call the save function. You won't want to, I've seen it many times. You don't want to copy, paste this 3 times, or even twice. You don't want to do that. Yes, like the public function could call the private function. That's not a problem there. Yeah, you could put it at the top, right? Okay. Luba wants it.
So we don't need the URL in that either, right?
Thank you, Luba. Luba wants it right here, and that makes sense because it's a private functions. Private functions are at the top here. What's your question, Tiffany?
We don't need the URL inside of the save. We don't need
Inside of this guy?
Yeah.
No. Everything is now in the save function. The URL, that's where it belongs.
So then can we not name that function save anymore? Because that was just, can we just name that function append to
This one?
append to array? Because that's not saving anymore, it's just appending.
I'll keep it that name. You could change it up, you could change your name there, but I'll keep it as save because that's what the view controller sees. It sees save. There's no public save apart from this one.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, cool. We have to get comfortable with refactoring our code. We do not duplicate code, right? Do not repeat yourself. Dry, right? Let's get familiar with that term here.
Don't repeat yourself. Are you trying?
Right? So I've seen it many times where we have one logic repeated 4 or 5 times. You see that happening? Stop, refactor the code. Whatever time it takes to refactor the code, refactor the code. Right? Because you have delete, that needs saving, you have update, that needs saving, and you have save event, that needs saving as well. Okay? Okay, so build, make sure you have no errors at this point. Delete, we haven't finished the delete yet, by the way. We haven't finished delete. Let's finish delete. So delete, even that could get its own function, by the way. Yeah, because that's like the same logic happening there. Try save. Refactor that. I'll leave that up to you guys to refactor. And here, actually it's different because this is delete. So we'll throw a different error. So throw, do we have a delete error? We have a saving error. We could have a deleting error. So the two of them know the differences.
Okay, wait. So we're no longer doing save for event?
There's no save for event here. We're just saving what we just changed. We just removed something from the array.
Oh, and that's the logic that we moved.
Exactly.
Okay, so both of your functions are named save. Let me see.
In iOS, there's different functions where it's the same name, different variables.
I know, but you right now, both of your functions.
One save takes an argument, one save does not.
Just guess, I know. Are both of your functions named save?
Yes, they are.
That's not.
Yeah. Both of them are called save. Let's update our enum with a case here. Okay. So we have 5 states in our enum and our save. Let me build this. Oh, error is not handled here. Try to save, throws. Error is not handled. This guy should throw. And expected throw specifier throws. And let's see. Okay. All right. So we are done here. Let's go fix our delete. Let's go update our view controller to actually call that delete function. Any questions before we move on? The one point of contention here is the refactor we did. Some people are not comfortable with that, right? At the end of the day, the reason why we refactored the code, because we were very close to saying, oh, we need that same logic. Let's copy it and put it in the delete function. That's what we were doing. We were very close to doing that. And as beginning developers, you'll come to doing it very easily. Like you're like, oh, that's the same code I need. Let me just copy paste that and move on. Right? But that's not what you want to do. You want to stop, take the code that you need, refactor it. Yes, you'll have errors. It might need some variable to depend on. For example, if you don't take URL here, it will be like, oh, I need a URL. Then you need to pass a URL to it. So whatever dependency you need or you don't need in that particular function, remove everything. To save something, you need to get to a URL. Right? Step 1, that's what we said there. You need to get to a URL. And the thing you save in, you need to have access to the thing that you're saving. Here, I have the events. I have an events array. So do not hesitate to refactor your code. Do not hesitate to refactor your code. Get in the habit of refactoring your code. Yes, it works. How can I make it easier to decouple things? I should have one save function that just does saving. Okay? So get in the habit of looking at your code. I see it many times, where we have 4 lines of code being repeated twice, 3 times, 4 times, right? Because the thing works, it works. But now, as a beginning developer, you're like, oh, if I take it out, it might break it. Push your changes to GitHub. Push your changes to GitHub, refactor the thing, it breaks. You could stash your changes, you could pull from GitHub again. But do not hesitate to refactor your code. Yes, sir?
Simple question, that's known as an optimization.
Optimization, readability, less bugs, all that stuff.
So monitor fixes, stuff like that.
Exactly, exactly. And now you see how we decoupled the saving part from the save event, right?
Yeah.
So as much decoupling as you could do, the better. Because now I have my update function, I could just call save on it. Exactly. Don't feel, as a matter of fact, I do encourage smaller functions. Smaller functions are better than one big function doing everything. Currently, our save event was doing save event plus actual saving to documents, right? So now we could test save by itself. I could write a unit test and say, does the thing save, right? Does it delete? Does it update? I don't have an update yet, but if I had an update, I could write a test for that. Because I have smaller functions. Smaller functions, easier to test. Do not hesitate to break your code. Yes?
Can you just re-explain the relationship between the save that doesn't take any...
So the private one?
Yeah, the private one.
Okay, so let's start off with this one for now. If you want to refactor it to call it create event, that's fine. You could refactor here. And you could call it create event. If that causes less of a, if it is easier here, you could call it create, which makes sense because create is C in our CRUD. So here I could say create event, and create event takes in an event, right? And it saves that event. It appends it to the array, like we did before, 1, and it saves it. That save, that private save, nobody outside of that function sees, or nobody outside of that class sees the save function. Save function is now a private function here. It's private. Nobody should get access to this explicitly from outside. If you want to do something, you either creating an event, you deleting an event, right? So it's private. So I call create, let's walk through it together. I call create from my view controller, it passes an event, I append it to the array, and I call save. Any questions about that particular code? Yes, sir? Okay, so let's go to save now, right? Can we go to save? Okay, so we go back to save. It takes us back to step one. We get a URL. Yes? We get a URL. We use a do catch here. We use our events array. We take our events array, we serialize it to data. We have data, and we take that data, we write it to the URL at that documents directory. Any questions about that? We went over that before, we just now broke up the code to make it easier for us to write. Any questions about that? Lilia? Oscar? Can you walk us through the create? Let's walk us through the create to the save. What's happening? The user creates a new event. What's happening?
You're appending the event first line. The first line.
You append the event to the array. Okay.
And then you're calling your save function.
I call it my save function, so the compiler gets here.
Yeah. And you put it in the do catch.
Before the do catch, what's happening here?
You're calling your you're calling the document
The documents directory?
Yeah.
And I'm appending the file into it.
Right.
And I'm returning that URL. Okay, keep going.
You're encoding you're using the function to encode the file directory to
What's happening here?
You're calling the property just encode function.
And what does it do? What does this encode events do?
It saves data.
Does it save the data though? It hasn't saved yet.
That's not the, I thought it was.
Nah, that's just converting my events array to data.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Okay, and then what's this doing?
That's you're getting the data, like all the data.
Uh-huh. You have the data and you are?
You're writing it.
Right, you write into that URL in documents directory. At that point, you are doing the saving. Cool. Yulia, walk me through it. Walk me through create and save.
So this function will be creating event, and also we're using this function to save.
Wait, you jump in. So you in create, talk to us about what's happening. You call the create function, walk us through the line. What's happening here?
So we aim a new event to a event category.
Okay,
And next step we using a previous function, we save previous function to saving this new event to other array.
okay, what's this line doing?
So this line. So this line basically accesses to the file, in particular like in the documents.
Okay,
Directory.
okay. Walk us through the do catch here. What's happening here?
So is it private function?
Just the line. What's the line doing?
So basically this line gives us, we have to translate basically from a Swift object to the format that data will be saved.
Okay. And this line?
So this actually everything that we stated is will be like reaching to the documents.
And write into it.
And write it.
Very good. Okay, May, go for it. From create.
So you're appending the event into the events array, and then you're doing a do catch on the save function,
Okay.
and then you're saving the file into the documents directory.
Wait. Before I save the file, I haven't saved. What happened in line 31? Line 31, what is
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's what I mean. Like
Okay, so I'm getting the path or the URL path, right?
Yeah.
Keep going.
And then you're trying to encode the data, so the Swift data. Sorry.
So you're converting the events data array, or sorry, the events array to a data object. Okay, keep going.
And you're writing from the file.
To the file.
Yeah.
You're taking the data and you're writing it to the file or to the URL. Cool? Any questions about that? We've had 3-4 fellows talk about it. Any questions? Any point where we are still unsure of what's happening? Yes, sir?
Dot atomic, if I remember correctly, was basically telling you to save all the data at once.
Exactly. Any other questions? So we've seen a lot of concepts, but I want to just go over it again. Yes?
When on line 38,
38.
when we get to this part, but if we have more than one object or event in the array, does it go over every?
It just overwrites it.
Okay.
Yeah, it just overwrites it. So if you have an array of 2 objects, it overwrites it. Actually, sorry, not overriding it. It takes every object in that, it serializes it to data. So at the end of the day, you have one blob of data, of bytes of.
Even if it already is in the
Yeah, it doesn't.
documents?
It doesn't matter, because you see when we say data here, it writes everything over. It overwrites whatever that exists
Oh, okay.
on that particular line here, right? So this line on line 38, it takes our array, goes through its array object, converts to data, and when we say data.write, it overwrites whatever exists.
I was just confused about it. I don't know if you did the whole thing over again or just that one event that we added.
Oh, we didn't do anything over again. The one event we added is coming from our create event here. We append it to the array, and now we say, go ahead, array, save yourself. Cool? Okay, so we renamed the save event to create. Less of a friction there, so that's better. And we have our load events. We did not touch that. There's no save in there. It only retrieves. And we have our delete. And our delete takes use of our save function. Any questions before we move on? Chelsea? Okay, so let us go work on delete. Yes, sir.
Kind of a general question. When you said like if we're repeating the code, like save, matter of fact, we're not doing exactly everything, but should we do, is that a good practice to do like a private function and a public function?
Yes, you'll see that used a lot where there's some internal logic that you do, even if the names are very similar, but the arguments are different. Like the outside function will take an argument, but the internal function, same name, will not take an argument, and will do the actual internal logic.
So yes, that would be more specific probably one time.
You'll see it other places as well.
No, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about the public save
Uh-huh.
will be more flexible in its uses. So more
The public is only available for people to pass an event to us.
Right.
Because that's what we want, right? We want an event, and then now it's up to us to save it. How we save it is up to us internally. We could be saving the thing from on Firebase or whatever, right? But the user knows they pass an event to us. How we save it is up to us. We could save it to user defaults, even if we, right? Cool? So now it's decoupled. The saving part of it is decoupled from the actual logic of what is happening in the view controller or in the actual save function too. Okay, so let's go to our view controller. Somebody please walk me through where should I be doing the delete? Tanya?
Okay, I did it in the.
Oh, you did it already. Look at that. Give it up to Tanya. Awesome.
So I made a function called delete event, where I called the singleton.
So you wrote a function and you called it, let me just make it private. So you wrote a function and you called it delete event. Okay. Does it take any arguments?
It takes in the index path.
An index path. Look at that. Cool. So it takes in an index path. Type index path.
Yes.
Okay.
And then a do catch in there,
A do catch in there.
and then drive the system
Look at that. Try persistence helper dot delete
and lowercase index path dot row.
rockstar. Cool. What else? And here you just have a print statement. Okay. So here you have a print statement saying error deleting or something like that. Error deleting event. Well, what do you do? Oh, sorry, error. Awesome. And where are you calling this delete event?
In the, well, I'm trying to call it in the table view function for where you're telling it to events that remove at index path, where you're saying to remove.
Okay, so we'll wait for people to finish type. How are we doing? Type in, right? Okay, we'll wait. So you have it in your delete, what do you have it again?
Below you have like a mark deleted rows in the table view. It's around 119 and 20.
Okay, so you added it there. Okay, so we'll wait for us to type and then we'll continue on. Cool? And it works as expected? The what?
Well, where would you put it? Would you put it in case delete?
Yes, sir.
Don't we have the swipe delete,
We have swipe to delete.
right?
We have that function already.
Yeah, that doesn't go in there.
We have that function already. We have some place in the code here that says delete item.
We do. We have it in case delete in the editing style,
Yeah.
and we have case insert and case delete. In case delete, we have.
But where are we actually removing the item from the array? We have that in the view controller somewhere.
Oh no, is it in destination index path? Is it events that remove at index?
Sounds familiar. Sounds familiar. How are we doing? Can we continue? Okay, cool. Let's see where we are. Delete.
This is for reordering. No, it's in deleting rows.
Yeah, right here. That's Tanya. That's where you're pointing us to, correct? Yeah, very good. Okay, so here we remove the event from the array, and we need the index path. We have the index path, and Tanya has this function that she wrote. We'll use it. So what did we call it? You don't need self here. Not in a closure. So delete event and then pass the index path, right, Tanya? Perfect. One line. So in our commit style, Tanya helped us to write this delete function, delete event. Delete event takes an index path. Index path has a section and a row.
Oh, because you know what? Are you putting index path dot row? You just put index path. Because you already put index path dot row, so that's already the name. That's what.
Now that's collaboration right there. All right, let's test it out. Let's see what's happening. So if I run the app, if I run our application, and I ate already, so I delete food. I kill the app, run it again. Food is gone. Look at that. Give it up to Tanya. Rockstar. Okay, so cool. Other things you could do offline. Offline, you could have an update. Update will require some sort of UI to show the user what they could change. And once they do that change, you commit the change and you call your update function.
So technically, this app is very much working. Like this is really like a scheduled app right now at this moment.
Yeah, you guys.
Can you use your nice device to download it into my phone?
Oh, you could use yours too, yeah. Offline. Let's download it offline. All right.
I gotta give it an app icon.
Any questions before we conclude lesson here? Because we have a lab to work on. We have a lab to work on that has 2 tabs. The first tab will have photos from some API. The second tab will have favorites that you have. And the favorites, you're not posting favorites. You're saving favorites locally in documents directory. Okay? Cool? Any questions about the code we've written today? Any questions at all? Yes?
We still need
Events that remove. That one does it locally, and this one does it documents. So yes, you still need both. All right, cool. Any other questions? Any other questions? So we have our persistence helper, where we did the majority of the work today, right? You guys wrote a lot of code today. Give it up to yourselves. Very good job. Awesome. Okay, so we'll stop here.